Lois and Peter were in the middle of a heated argument. Peter wanted to spend his Sunday evening playing laser tag with Brian and his pals, while Lois insisted he should stay home and spend time with the family. Ignoring Lois's objections, Peter soon found himself at the laser tag arena, where he and his friends suited up in safety jackets and blasted laser beams at each other in an intense game. Peter emerged victorious and won a prize, a fake newspaper headline celebrating his win. 4 hours later, Peter finally returned home. And Lois was furious about the time he had wasted. As they argued, Brian took Peter's side, insisting that he was Peter's true friend. Lois countered that Brian was just a dog whom Peter took advantage of. Stung by her words, Brian felt compelled to prove his loyalty and followed Peter to the bar to hang out with him and his friends. As Peter, Brian, and their pals were driving toward the bar, a sudden, blinding flash of light hit them, and they all lost consciousness. When Peter woke up, he found himself in an empty hospital. He soon ran into Quagmire, who seemed equally disoriented. Strangely, neither of them recognized each other, as if their memories had been wiped clean. The two wandered through the eerily silent hospital, where every room was vacant and all signs of life had disappeared. A short time later, Joe and Brian joined them, both equally confused and memoryless. Looking outside, they saw abandoned streets, empty cars, and not a soul in sight. The group realized that they were the only ones left in what seemed to be an entirely deserted world. With no memories of their identities, they decided to give each other makeshift names. Quagmire became Shirt Pants, Joe was Manly Walker, Peter called himself Earl, and Brian remained undecided. The four ventured out, exploring the empty town, shocked by the abandoned shops, parks, and buildings. They speculated on what could have caused everyone else to vanish and began to feel the weight of their strange, isolated situation. While wandering, Brian spotted a wrecked car that had crashed into a pole. Because they had no memories, none of them recognized it as their own, but Brian's instincts kicked in and he sniffed the car, confirming it had once been theirs. Rummaging through the car's remnants, they discovered Peter's identity as Peter Griffin, and found his address on Spooner Street. Excited by this revelation, they decided to follow Brian's nose to locate each of their homes. At Quagmire's house, Brian confirmed Quagmire's real name, and they speculated that he might be Brian's owner. Joe, excited to piece things together, also found out his home address. Finally, at Peter's house, they made a startling discovery. They saw a photo of Peter in his laser tag gear, holding a laser gun, with a dramatic caption that read, "Peter Griffin, Destroyer of Worlds." Suddenly, they were convinced that Peter, who they knew as Earl, was responsible for the mysterious disappearance of the entire human population. In a panic, Joe, Quagmire, and Brian hatched a plan. To avoid inciting Peter's wrath, they decided to be extra nice to him. They offered to bake him a pie as a peace offering, but Peter's casual comment about killing to get that pie sent them into another spiral of fear. The trio quickly retreated to Quagmire's house, nervously strategizing on how to deal with Earl the Destroyer. Brian, meanwhile, was miserable about the idea that Quagmire could be his owner, finding him fussy and difficult. Quagmire and Joe decided to gather some weapons, thinking they might need to defend themselves against Peter. While they were gone, Brian spent more time with Peter, realizing that Peter seemed harmless and surprisingly fun to be around. As their camaraderie grew, Brian started feeling a genuine connection with Peter, doubting the theory that Peter had destroyed the world. When he reported back to Quagmire and Joe that Peter seemed innocent, they refused to listen, convinced he was dangerous. Brian, concerned for Peter's safety, warned him about their suspicions. The warning came just in time. Joe fired a shot aimed at Peter, but Brian heroically leaped in front of him, taking the bullet instead. Suddenly, Brian woke up in a jolt and found himself connected to a strange machine, surrounded by familiar faces. He realized that this entire experience had been a simulation. Stewie, watching the experiment unfold, explained that he had been testing the depth of the friendship between Peter and Brian. Initially skeptical, Stewie had been attempting to prove that Peter didn't truly care for Brian. But the results proved Stewie wrong. He had unwittingly confirmed that Peter and Brian shared a genuine, unbreakable bond.